I will never forget the first moment when, upon completing or coming close to the completion of my 200-hour yoga teacher training, we were in the beginnings of talking about uh, the business of yoga. And some of you have heard this story, but I was sitting next to this beautiful friend of mine, and I turned to her. I knew that I wanted a term that would talk about childlikeness. She turned to me and said, "Oh, that's a phrase, but when I look at you, the word I see is mongoliso." I earnestly thought she was messing with me once she told me what it was. And the reason for that was because Mongoliso is Zulu for "you are an amazement." You see, I had spent plenty of decades within the constructs of religious organizations that dictated and determined how to live, tried to dictate and determine how to think, but definitively had their ideas about what was right and what was wrong. But not only that, the whole emphasis and energy of the organization went towards building up the organization as a whole or the one celebrity focus of said organization. And it was never about the larger populace. Sure, it could be about the high level donation partners, but it was never about, or let me put it this way, because, the words never and always are, need to be touched. It was very rarely about anything else than the organization or the one person at the helm. And so when now, over, like 5 years ago, I heard the word Mongoliso, and it meant "you are an amazement." I knew that I was being given a word to champion the amazement of all. And that, beyond anything, is my anthem. In touching practices that I believe help with spiritual formation and direction, we're often shown, excuse me, this is the way to meditate, or this is the way to move, or this is the way to journal. And it became very apparent to me as I started to form the Listening Academy and wanted to create space for individuals to find their own formation and for individuals to find what type of spiritual director or person they want to be out in the world. How then was I going to present? And I remembered the paradigm in which I first touched the formal education of yoga therapy. It was the first time I, as a person, was ever welcomed onto the mat. It was the first time that I was given a construction that said, this is who you are, and your client is coming, and this is who they are. And that makes up the session. Sure, they taught us all the aspects and elements that we need to be able to hold the space of yoga therapy. But in the day and time when I learned the method that I was trained under, there was magic. And it was immense because it invited me to show up as a whole person and then to have the lens to give space for my client to show up as a whole person. It was that influenced my heart in coming to these practices, whether it be spiritual autobiography and the writing thereof, or it's the walking of a labyrinth, or it's journaling, or playing around with silence or solitude. There are dozens of practices. And yes, some schools of thought would say, oh, when you go to meditate, this is exactly how you do it, steps 1 through 6. And another school might say, oh, when you go to meditate, this is the exact way you do it, steps 1 through 6. But the reality of it is, what if 6 comes first? And what if 3 doesn't exist? And what if today you just need step 2? That was the space that I wanted to hold. Because in that space, what happens for people is there becomes a creativity and an innovative essence within them. Courage comes and they get to learn how to trust and hear themselves once again, trust their gut. Oh, can I take this session, this direction, and still be right? I wanted to take a big eraser and say, it's not about right or wrong. It is more about you learning how to listen to yourself, trust your gut, be present in the moment, and have that direct experience. Asking yourself, what's happening now? And how do I want to take this practice, this experience with this client, this time with myself, and explore it out and discover it so I can claim and reclaim who it is I am, discovering and exploring out my expression and expanding into it. So often through, I'm about to turn 49, and I would say for 30 years, I spent time within numerous different organizations, whether they were faith-based or based in yoga, and I got a lot of insight and wisdom into regards to how fear can end up steering the boat, how control, how hierarchical structures of power can really crush an individual's creativity. And as I take this next chapter of my life, as I live this last year of my 40s, I really wanted to do it differently. And as I posted a quote today, I wanted to stop living life from any perspective that said, ugh, I don't want to do it that way. And I wanted to find out what I could do. I remember back in 2013, 2014, when I was really head on deconstructing the spaces of faith that I had come forth from. And in my gut was that space of, I can't do this anymore. All I felt like I had done for decades was build the tables of other organizations that, in my estimation, in that faith construction, Jesus would just topple. And I was exhausted. I was exhausted of churchianity. I was exhausted by the selling out of spirituality, the commercialization of those spaces. And in my gut was this statement, I can't do this anymore. But even back then, I knew that I did not want to live from a place of negativity. And so instead of staying there, I can't do this anymore, I did take the steps. And I did leave. But what I began to ponder was, if I can't do that anymore, what can I do? And then Mongoliso came. And it was like trumpeting this anthem of celebrate the amazement of others, champion the amazement of others. Open up the doors wide for people to find their courage, their space of curiosity. Ignite hope again. You can learn to trust yourself again. Let's throw away those questions of whether you're doing it right or wrong. And let's just find the essence and the characteristic of play. Right? Let's go to our journals and write diagonally or in a circle or write on the dirt or take today's snippet on Facebook. And my YouTube channel is a audio recording from my iPhone put on a slide from Keynote. Right? Whether you want to use your phones, your iPads, your computers, paper, pen, canvas, right? Photography, film. What if the sky was the limit? And what if you didn't have to be afraid of punishment, of getting it wrong? What would you endeavor to do? That is what I want to support. So go out today, whether and grab a hold of a practice, whatever that means for you. Turn around and say, I have been afraid of doing XYZ, right? But I'm going to fill in the blank. Last year was a year of so many of those things for me. I got on a bicycle, having not been on a bicycle for over 32 years. As a 48-year-old, I taught myself how to kayak, and I kayak not just in rivers and streams and lakes, but I went on to the ocean up off of Rockport, Massachusetts, and I taught myself how to kayak. I got on the back of a horse after having ridden all my childhood and young adulthood. I hadn't been on a horse since I was maybe 14, 15, 16, and there again, I was on a horse. What do you want to return to? Or what do you want to create? What is being formed within you? What is alive in you? What is dying in you? Where is hope for you today? Those are the questions. Step into your life, take the next step, and live it.